Okay. I met with Akachi and Kobayashi in front of their dormitory later. There was a plan, and I was eager to be a partner. Kobayashi too responded eagerly to this news once relayed.
That's the stuff! I know you'll be a great help tracking down those vases! I'm more surprised Akachi agreed to it. I often think he wouldn't be caught dead asking someone for help.
For better or worse, I'm a man of my word.
Ah, so that's what happened. You set yourself up, and when she asked, well, here she is. He's always been a strict fellow, Emily, but if there's one thing that will break his code, it's his need to pay his debts. You found his secret.
Hush, Kobayashi.
I don't plan to abuse it. I'm just very pleased to work on this case with you.
And we'll be happy to have you, Emily.
I'm certain you'll be an excellent addition to our investigation.
Akachi spoke in a muted tone, still somewhat opposed to the whole affair. That he hadn't outright forbidden me from joining, however, showed a sign of change I welcomed. According to the information they had gathered previously, the vases were made by the Regal Crown Dewsbury Porcelain Company, the same workshop that crafted porcelainware for Her Majesty. It went without saying that they were of considerable value and likely to fetch a large sum if fenced at an antique shop. The client was flush with funds to buy the vases back if necessary, and by the time I joined the investigation, they had already located the shop to which they had been sold. Though they had been able to successfully purchase 2 of the vases, the remaining 3 had unfortunately been sold. The situation, as it stood, led us back into the antique shop.
Blast it! You're back for more, aren't you?
He doesn't appear to be fond of you, Akachi. Did something happen last time?
If you must know, he was doing a poor job looking after his store's pieces, so I took it upon myself to give him some advice.
Some advice, you say? You picked fault with all my merchandise!
It was a perfectly justifiable reaction, given the thick layer of dust blanketing your curios. I pity your collection. No one who sees them will care to buy them.
Yes, yes. We're only here today for information on the people who bought these vases.
Kobayashi inserted himself into the conversation forcibly to brandish a detailed sketch of the desired items.
If you have any information you can provide, even the smallest detail, it would be a great help.
It was this intervention which calmed the shopkeeper and gleaned from him just what we needed. Shall we review what we've learnt then? The first vase was purchased by an elderly woman with a walking stick. At the time of purchase, she wore a plumed hat and had on her fingers several rings. The shopkeeper mentioned she browsed for a while before settling on the vase, also requesting that it be carefully wrapped for ease of transport.
Based on her appearance, my first guess would be that she's a noblewoman.
The second vase was bought by a man with a mustache.
To be precise, a mustachioed man dressed in black.
I was about to add that before you interrupted me. As I was saying, at first this man displayed an interest in all the remaining vases. He was visibly irritated when the owner would only consent to selling him a single vase. Seems he drives a hard bargain.
It's likely he wanted to hold the others and later sell them at a loftier price. I'm sure their value will only increase with time.
And yet, after selling him the one vase, the man left without incident. He was a complete gentleman.
I'm glad it didn't come to an argument.
The third and final...
Oh, sorry, that's actually Akachi. I was so distracted by... I read young woman at the end and was like, ah yes, this bald young woman. The silhouette of the bald young woman. Anyway, Akachi, my apologies.
The third and final vase, we were told, was purchased by a young woman. Her hair was bound up untidily, and the owner noted she seemed to be in quite a hurry. Her sleeves were rolled up, and her palms bore no small amount of scratches and scrapes.
That's quite the contrast from the first buyer. Could she have been on her way to work?
From the sound of it, she showed no interest in any of the store's other antiques. She entered, purchased the vase, and left.
There we have it. I've an idea who we should investigate first. I want to do the young woman. don't know if I can do all 3 of these, like I did before, but just in case. I don't trust. The elderly woman sounds like just a noblewoman out for a jaunt who found a nice vase. Might have known the real value and just got the one. The mustachioed man in black sounds suspicious, but he probably knew, or he either knew the value or he wanted a complete set of vases, so that's why he wanted all of them. But then was just like, okay, fine, I have the one. And then this woman doesn't sound like she has any business having money to buy a vase of this value, so I'm curious about her. The description of the woman who bought the 3rd vase piqued my interest. If she was in a hurry and with her sleeves rolled up, then perhaps something had come up for which she had immediate need of a vase. I can see her breaking one she owned and requiring a replacement as soon as possible.
That would make sense if the vase was to be used in a shop's display or other publicly visible location.
So she would need a vase. She's got scrapes. Her hair's kind of a mess. Alright.
Her hair bunched up, sleeves rolled, and hands covered with scrapes and scratches. Based on this information...
It isn't difficult to see that she is obviously a beautician. No, a flower seller would make much more sense with the scrapes. I hear that being a florist can take quite the toll on one's hands due to the rasping of leaves and thorns. It would also make sense that she needed a replacement to display her wares. I'm a detective!
I am still confounded at the thought of a vase made by a company with royal warrant of appointment being employed in the manner of some common flower pot.
Still, if she came to the antique shop looking as though she was still on the job, the place she works mustn't be far. Let's see if we can find it.
We went to each of the street's florists in turn. Wonder if it's the same flower seller that was in Watson's epilogue. That'd be funny. In the 3rd shop we visited, we at last found the vase we had been seeking, complete with a lily of the valley growing within. We explained to the shop's owner all that had happened, and were able to reclaim the vase for a modest sum. Well, that one's probably the cheapest for us to actually reclaim. We continued our search for the missing vases. The more we searched, the more we realized tracking down all 3 would take more time than we anticipated. And more time still, as we were interrupted. Akachi, in the midst of pondering, stopped without warning. Akachi?
Something wrong?
I'm sorry, but might I ask you to wait here a moment?
With a small sigh, Akachi turned around. Neither of us knew where he was looking. We followed his own gaze until we noticed a familiar boy. Hi, Rick. I wondered if it was you.
Oh.
A short boy with dark hair. Well! Hello, Rick. How long have you been following us?
I never knew you were following us. Very impressive. You just might make a worthy student for Akachi after all.
As though emboldened by Kobayashi's praise, Rick clenched both his fists tightly, looking directly at Akachi.
Please teach me everything you know. Please.
He's still asking, I see. He truly is determined to be Akachi's student.
Is that the extent of your business with me, Rick? If you are that insistent on becoming my student, I shall require a proof of your resolve. A proof? If you find yourself unable to meet my demand, I would ask that you stop following me. I harbor no small contempt for those who are all talk and no action.
His declaration made, Akachi cast his gaze away from the child.
But...
Oh! Rick, wait!
Rick, looking thoroughly downhearted, turned and ran, heedless of Kobayashi calling after him.
Come off it, Akachi! Did you really need to be so harsh?
At least now he should no longer be inclined to follow me.
Even in the face of Kobayashi's withering glare, Akachi held fast to his position.
After all, being constantly followed by a boy is a little more than an annoyance, and a distraction besides.
A boy! A kid! You could have worded it more gently. Anyone's feelings would be hurt the way you spoke to him.
If all it takes for one to relinquish their hope is a few painful words, their metal was never truly behind it to begin with.
Akachi's words cut to the quick, more so now than usual. It struck me as forced. I wonder what he was like when he was first under the tutelage of his master.
Of all people, I would have thought you most mindful of the pain that comes with being rejected by someone you respect. I hate those who trample on the feelings of others, and you aren't an exception, Akachi!
Oh! Kobayashi! Kobayashi pivoted round to follow after Rick. I mean, he's right. He's right. Akachi made no attempt to stop him. He stood in place. Not a muscle moved, not a blink of an eye, and watched till his friend was gone. Akachi, should you not go after?
Fulfilling our client's request takes priority.
The response was blunt. Adjusting his sword slung at his waist as one might a scarf, he continued on with his work. This time I was the one who stood unmoving. Akachi was so different in that moment. Ah! He's left me behind! Wait, Akachi! My thoughts were all a jumble, but that was no excuse to stay and do nothing. Organization would have to come whilst I ran. Rude. Akachi?
Yes?
What Kobayashi said must be bringing him back to what happened with his own master. What should I ask? What he was thinking? What happened earlier? Nothing? But the terse tone of his voice stilled the words resting at my tongue. Nothing.
Miss Whiteley, you are many things, but a good liar is not one of them. Here's what I think. Kobayashi, prefacing it with some warning along the lines of not wanting to go into detail, proceeded to tell you what transpired between myself and my master. Or so your reaction tells me.
Do I have that many tells?
You do. And I meant no criticism by pointing it out. It simply makes plain the honesty of your upbringing. And if my own upbringing is not as plain, then allow me to clarify. I have no regrets concerning my actions. If anything, I am privileged events transpired as they did. It brought me to these shores, and it taught me at great price that reliance on others is not to one's benefit. Kobayashi has continued to dwell on the issue since then, much like I have. But I have never once permitted myself to be swayed by the opinions of others. I think for myself and hold to my own convictions.
Akachi's grip tightened round the sheath of his sword. You made your decision not to take on any students very clear, but is there some other reason you were so severe with Rick?
What gave you that impression?
When you refused him, you appeared apologetic to me. It hurt you.
You have an eye for observation.
As a detective should, you know.
I suppose you're right. About that and what you said. The students who attempted to have me arrested by Scotland Yard knowingly gave false evidence to the police, and will be punished by the Academy for doing so. But rather than dissipate, I expect their grudge against me will grow. There is every possibility that those around me may become victims of their attempts to do me ill. I thought it for the best that he keep his distance from me, lest their malice fall upon him.
The shadow beneath his eyes was not from being tired. The pain he carried was heavy, nerve-wracking down to his soul, for it was not only his pain, but every potential person who crossed his path. And for each new person he met, the pain was heavier. I know you meant well, Akachi, but the manner in which you addressed him will only give him the impression that you mean anything but.
As was my goal.
Then he would prefer to be hated than risk someone being hurt on his behalf. Akachi is a fool, and he's so awkward at showing just how kind he is. Oops, that was supposed to be in my head.
Did you say something?
No, it wasn't important.
I see. Still, after discussing it with you, I should have better chosen my words. And I ought to have realized that myself without Kobayashi having to angrily point it out. I can see I still have much to learn.
Don't look so sad. Please, stop looking so sad. And stop trying to be Batman, man. Cheer up. Everything will be all right. It was all I could say.
Miss Whiteley.
You spend so much effort doing all you can to aid those in need that you lose yourself in the process. Rick is a clever boy. He must know it as well as I do, and that's why he's approached you again and again and again. I don't like that you've tried to lead him into misunderstanding you as a person. Especially when there are so many wonderful things about you.
This is the first time anyone has tried to encourage me in such a fashion.
I could not read him then. He was uncomfortable? Confused?
I'm unsure of the most appropriate response. All I can say is thank you.
He searched and paused for the answer, then seemed unable to find anything that was proper and spoke without any calculation. It was the most gentle, youthful version of him I'd ever seen. The contrast with his usual self-sufficient air of maturity came as a bit of a surprise. I wish there was more I could do. To aid him and support him, whatever the endeavor. I couldn't help but feel restless, though I couldn't entirely say why. 'Cause you love him, girl. The two of us continued our search for the remaining vases. It then became 3 as Kobayashi approached.
There you are!
Something was amiss, for he was very short of breath. Kobayashi?
Kobayashi? Is Rick...
He could not finish.
Remember what you said to him? That if he wanted to be your student, you required a proof of his resolve?
Kobayashi gripped Akachi's arm and dug his nails in so that it must have hurt.
That's what you said. You're responsible for what he does to show you he's serious. Now go and watch as he does just that.
What are you talking about?
Rick said he would do whatever it took for you to accept him. And now he's gone and made a mad dash after them.
Who? Kobayashi explained how he and Rick had happened to catch sight of the students responsible for Akachi's unjust arrest as they were plotting what further trouble they might cause him. And how, ignoring Kobayashi's warnings and attempts to stop him, Rick pursued.
You may wonder why I'm here instead of chasing after him. In short, because I want you to see his resolve for yourself. You won't take him at his word unless you do. Hurry up and watch carefully. He is doing just what you wanted.
Kobayashi's usual chipper expression was wholly absent. In its place was one of ironclad seriousness.
Very well. I don't believe I have any choice in the matter.
Akachi and I followed quickly after Kobayashi. Slipping down a small back alley, we could make out several voices.
You want to try saying that again, kid?
Stop! Stop doing terrible things to Akachi!
You came sprinting after us just to say that. You daft. As if a little shit like you can do anything to us. Get lost!
I can't! I won't!
Facing down the group of boys, each far larger than himself, Rick clenched his fist tightly, his whole body shaking. He looked as though tears might well up at any moment. However...
Not until you promise! When you promise that you won't do anything nasty or mean to him anymore, then I'll leave!
Rick shouted now, the will of his body audible in his quavering declaration. Even still, he refused to take so much as a single step back. Rick!
What now, Akachi?
Akachi stood silent, unmoving. Akachi? I called out to him timidly. I cannot claim to know anything about your relationship with your own master. Still, I think Rick's admiration of you and desire to follow in your footsteps are genuine. So don't be afraid of him looking up to you as his master. Just as Akachi looked at me in surprise, events took a turn.
You don't know when to turn tail, do you? I said get lost, kid!
One of the boys drew back his fist and took a swing at Rick. Watch out!
He's fine, Emily.
Kobayashi's stubborn tone from before had been replaced with complete calm.
Akachi would never turn his back on someone determined to try their absolute best.
Oh. There he is, ready to save the day. Ace Attorney style. And so it played out before our very eyes.
It's that foreigner!
Master! My. Even when trouble doesn't find you, you seem to find it well enough.
Akachi had interposed himself between Rick and the boy, catching the young man's punch with an open hand. The boy's shouts of cruel glee gave way to silence, and they tensed at the very sight of him.
Here is the first lesson. Making no reaction to your opponent's attacks is as good as welcoming them to strike you. Still, I cannot very well upbraid you for your foolishness without recognizing your courage. It was as though I peered into a glass and saw reflected my own self in my greenest years.
What? Huh? Aw, you remind him of him, Rick.
Damn it! Let go of me this instant! I said let go!
His arm now tightly wound in Akachi's grasp, the boy cried out in pain. Throwing himself free of the hold, he backed off warily.
This is not the first time I've told all of you that it is beneath a man of dignity to raise his hand against a child.
I don't got time to waste remembering the house of a monkey in spectacles.
Don't start getting full of yourself, you damn Oriental. We're going to beat you and your friends so hard you'll never show your faces at the academy ever again.
I had intended to turn a blind eye to your behavior, so long as I alone was the target of your spite. However, it seems I did not make myself clear enough last time. Miss Whiteley, would you be so kind as to look after this?
Oh my god, he's giving me the katana! Oh my goodness! We've taken such a bound in our relationship. But this is your katana! Pulling the sword from his belt, sheath and all, Akachi placed it in my hands. Then, reaching down, he took up a stick that was lying near his feet. A lot of convenient sticks around here.
What? Aren't you going to use your fancy sword?
I refuse to turn my blade upon ordinary people. I believe I told you that once before. Please, hold on to that until I am finished here.
Certainly! I clasped his katana tightly in my arms. I'll guard it with my life. It's heavier than it looks. I'm amazed he carries it at his waist every day. And with each passing moment, the weight of it seemed to grow.
Do you need any help?
That won't be necessary. Leave this to me.
Got it. You act tough now, but let's see how much it takes to make you cry. And you will. Oh, you're going to regret picking a fight with us.
Just to be clear, I will not hurt you any more than proves necessary.
Akachi swung his stick through the air as though testing its heft. Seeming satisfied, he raised it above his head, pausing for but a moment.
Come! Permit me to show you!
In one instant, both Akachi and his assailants attacked. But rather than a frenzy of slashes, Akachi employed against all three only a single broad slash. The motion was so quick that the humble stick seemed to blur and vanish before my eyes. All came to a standstill. Gasps of pain were all that told me time was still constant. Male students.
Ah!
The three crumpled face down in the alley. That's a strong stick. You hold on to that. They simply lay there, as though the mere act of drawing breath required of them labored effort.
Master, that was amazing!
Rick's voice rang with dew-eyed admiration. I'm stunned he was able to subdue them with a single attack. Akachi is truly amazing. Like Rick, I found myself struck with wonder and admiration for Akachi's masterful swordsmanship. Akachi? What are you doing?
Just what it looks like. tending to their wounds.
But they were trying to hurt you.
The pain of the blow will have been intense, but if seen to promptly, it should subside as quickly as it came.
My words and face must surely have conveyed my bewilderment, but if he felt any of the situation's heavy irony, his matter-of-fact response did not betray it.
Rick, your idle hands would be better served assisting me.
Yes, sir!
With great skill, Akachi tended to the injuries he had caused only minutes before. What a guy. The boys were unsure of what to think once they were tended to.
Ow. I don't get it. Why would you help us?
My aim is to become a detective, not a warrior. The katana I carry with me is a weapon to safeguard people. And when I do hurt others, at the very least, I want to treat their wounds with my own hands. That's all there is to it. It's nothing you need concern yourselves with. I do it for my own self-satisfaction as much as anything.
They continued to gaze at Akachi, wholly unsure what to make of him.
Aren't you angry? We've been trying to drive you out of the academy. I hated that people expected more of you than us when you're not even English. That everyone made such a fuss over you just for being from the Orient.
I bear you no ill will. People tend to be unkindly disposed toward foreigners in all corners of the world. I fully expected my presence here would be met with hostility. You should live with the pride that you were born of Engelsch. There is a place for you in this country that you can call home, and you will be acknowledged fairly for your abilities as well. Indeed, I'm certain that here, among your fellow countrymen, you'll find it far easier to be loved for your accomplishments than I.
It was a tone of indifference, but his words were directed squarely towards his former enemies.
That's actually quite moving.
What?
I haven't felt really moved like this since the time we watched the sun set from atop the schoolhouse. Funny, I was thinking the very same. I was too!
What are they going on about?
Still in pain, but over the worst of it, they worked to stand as a team so that they could face Akachi properly. Oh, well hello.
Is there something more you need from me?
There is. We've been inspired by your chivalry.
Oh gosh, I was wondering, I'm like, are you gonna get like 4 students today? You're gonna have your own little team.
We'd like to learn everything we can from you.
We'll be like brothers!
Please!
The 3 of them stood, eyes sparkling before Akachi. The number of students he's collected is growing by the day.
Akachi? If you don't say something, I half expect they'll stand there forever. Could do with a nice bow the way it's done back home, of course.
I'm terribly sorry, but I'm afraid I only have time for one student.
Just one?
Quite. I think, having never taken on a pupil prior, one student is all I can handle.
Who is it?
Aww, he's getting a head pat! Akachi gently tousled Rick's hair. Rick gazed up at him, eyes wide with surprise.
Master? To be clear, I have yet to decide whether to take you on as my pupil. However, I intend to offer you the chance to qualify for the position if you still desire it. But I must warn you, I will be a very strict master. Are you ready for that?
Of course, Master!
That's lovely to hear.
He looked down at Rick, a gentle smile playing upon his lips. He still felt some lingering discomfort at being referred to as Master, but one could see pride, and even a bit of happiness in his demeanor.
Emily, it made me happy when I first discovered that Rick admired Akachi. He's so strict that he still hasn't mastered socializing with others. He can even act harshly if he thinks it's for the other person's benefit. You saw how he was with Rick. But I didn't want him to lose that light of admiration he held in his heart.
So that's why you went chasing after him.
What are the two of you smiling about?
Listen, Akachi. I know I said hurtful things to you before, but I wasn't serious. It was in the heat of the moment, you see. Knowing you, I began to worry that you may have taken what I said seriously and be upset.
I would do no such thing.
It was at that juncture that I realized I was still clutching Akachi's katana. Akachi! I forgot I still have your sword! I held the sheathed blade out to him.
I asked you to look after it, and you have my thanks for doing so. You didn't find it heavy, did you?
The blade that, in the tension of the incident, had seemed so ponderous in my grasp, now felt light, and Akachi took it from my hands as though it weighed nothing at all. Not at all. But since it is so important to you, I wanted to keep it in good care.
You have the right of it. It is something important to me. One of the most important things. And yet, in that moment of danger, it occurred to me that it would be safe in your hands. Reflecting on it, I'm not sure why I thought that.
Really? You have no idea, huh? Akachi then turned from me. My heart swelled with both embarrassment and pride. As it should. As it should. Later, thanks in no small part to the 3 boys, we were able to recover all the remaining vases. Okay, well, I only had one choice with those 3 people, so I'm glad I picked what I picked. It worked out. I guess it didn't really matter. Several days after, Akachi and Kobayashi paid another visit to their client, this time to return what was once lost. The client had been overjoyed with their work. He expressed that if ever he required such services again, he would telephone them without delay. Kobayashi's face fairly beamed as he related the story, and even Akachi seemed more sprightly than usual. Seeing them so happy and hearing them share their triumph, I couldn't help but feel uplifted. There was nothing quite like a bad day ending in good cheer. Is that the end? That's the end. What a great end to that episode. Loved it.